Paul Hawksby and Andy Jacobs here on talkSPORT. Now, as I'm sure you're aware, Sir Dave Brailsford, the Team Sky principal, and other members and people around Team Sky appeared in front of a parliamentary select committee to shed a little bit more light on the notorious jiffy bag that was delivered to Bradley Wiggins back in 2011. There was a UK anti-doping investigation into it. It was a strange day with a lot of questions really still to be answered by everybody involved. David Walsh, I'm sure, was keeping a very close eye on events, the Sunday Times chief sports writer. He joins us now. David, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, I'd say especially Sir Dave Brailsford's role in it. The fact that he did finally say what was in the jiffy bag after all this time, when he'd had plenty more opportunities to do that. It did seem quite strange, didn't it?
Yeah, strange beyond the point of credibility. I mean, Flumicil, the substance that they're now saying was in the jiffy bag, is a pretty innocuous substance. So when Dave Brailsford was asked, I think it was on something like September 22nd, the journalist in the Daily Mail, chief sports writer Matt Lawton, rang up, said, rang up Team Sky, said, I've heard about this medical package delivered to the team. What was in it? Now, Matt Lawton then met Dave Brailsford 5 days later and they discussed it. So Dave Brailsford doesn't have 5 minutes or 10 minutes. He's got 5 days. Make a call to the doctor, Richard Freeman, and say, Richard, can you remember that medical package that Simon Coke brought over in 2011? What was in it? Richard Freeman says Flumicil, harmless. Dave Brailsford comes back to Matt Lawton and said it was Flumicil, but he didn't. They wouldn't say what was in it. You had this huge emphasis put on the medical package because Team Sky couldn't say what was in it. Now it turns out it was Flumicil. I find it incredibly difficult to believe that that if this was the product, why couldn't they have said it back, almost 3 months ago?
Sure.
And the thing about it is, I was looking it up yesterday, it's contraindicated, isn't it, for asthmatics, and yet we hear that Wiggins was an asthma sufferer, so there's doubt about that, isn't there?
Yes, there is. And what you've got here is, this is connected to the 3 therapeutic use exemptions that Bradley Wiggins was given before his 3 biggest races during his career at Team Sky. And I mean, this is hugely important because the second of those therapeutic use exemptions was for the 2012 Tour de France, when Bradley Wiggins became the first British winner of the world's greatest bike race. Now, Bradley Wiggins was in the form of his life in 2012, and he didn't seem to have any health issues. And yet, 4 days before the race, he's given a very strong, powerful corticosteroid. And he's given an injection, 40 mg, serious dosage, injected, which is the most potent way of making sure that it gets into your system and it does its work. And this was a corticosteroid that multiple cyclists have told us is a huge performance enhancer. So from beginning to end, this story stinks.
Well, they also, Matt Lawton's piece today, David, which I'm sure you've read, suggesting that so Dave Brailsford offered him an alternative story, a different story about another team, where he not to write this story because he thought it could be damaging for Team Sky. But if it was just a harmless over-the-counter medication, why would it be damaging to Team Sky?
Yes, absolutely. And you have to also kind of what you've got to do here, guys, is ask yourself the question: what did Dave Brailsford mean when he said to Matt Lawton, if you didn't write the story, is there anything else that could be done? What was Dave Brailsford suggesting there? Is there anything else that could be done? To me, that was a pretty ambiguous thing to say, at the very least. If you were taking a view that wasn't helpful to Dave Brailsford, you'd be asking Dave, were you trying to kind of bribe Matt by offering him something else in lieu of he not writing this story? If you didn't write the story, is there anything else that could be done? I mean, what's he saying? Is there anything else that we could do for you? And to me, again, this is part of a story that I think is doing tremendous damage to Team Sky. And the irony, or the sadness, if you like, about the story is that Dave Brailsford has created a truly terrific team, a team that has been hugely successful, and I believe, for the most part, has been properly run with great people. I mean, the people, who have followed Team Sky will know about people like Tim Kerrison, the head coach, like Rod Ellingwood, the most brilliant kind of planner coach guy that you would ever meet in the cycling peloton. And there are high-quality people right across the board at Team Sky, and that's been Dave Brailsford's achievement. But in my eyes, what he did with Bradley Wiggins and what was going on at the time of the medical package has really undermined a huge amount of great work.
You feel, I've seen from your tweets, David, you feel that his position is untenable now. You think the only way forward is without him. But I also see that your understanding is, were he not to be involved, then Sky could potentially pull out.
Yeah, that's the word from the team, that Sky are saying there isn't, that they've indicated to people within the team that without Dave Brailsford there is no future. I believe that Sky, I believe that Dave Brailsford should resign, or that Sky should politely ask him to step aside and to thank him for doing fantastic work. We know he's been very well paid for doing that work, so it's not like he'd be leaving the sport a poor man. But the thing is, they set themselves up as the cleaner than clean team, and they asked us to judge them by the highest standards. And they've fallen way, way short of those standards on a very serious issue at a very serious time in the team's development, i.e. on the eve of winning their first Tour de France. Now, Sky need to say to the public, we take this stuff really seriously. What we were telling you wasn't PR guff. We really do take this, the integrity of how the team operates, we take it hugely seriously. And we appreciate that the only way we can begin to regain the public's trust, is by showing how seriously we take it. And with the view of that, we do hold Dave Brailsford responsible for what's gone wrong, and we can only move forward without him. That, in my view, is what the team needs to do if it's going to stay in the sport. If it stays in the sport with Dave, I don't think this is a cloud that is ever going to dissipate.
And finally, David, he's admitted, at the very least, he's managed this incredibly badly. You know him pretty well. Do you think he's the kind of man that would walk away, would resign because of that?
I'm not sure. I mean, this has clearly been an incredibly tough time for him, but it has been self-inflicted. I mean, what they did with Bradley Wiggins in those TUEs was just wrong. And no matter what Dave Brailsford, however he tries to justify it, certainly, as somebody who's followed the sport and really did buy into what Team Sky were trying to do, I know what they did was incredibly at odds with the kind of moral and ethical standards that they were suggesting that they were living up to. Dave, when he says, I've made a mess of this, and I don't want to be too cynical, but what he's doing here is he's trying to shift the focus from what actually happened to how he dealt with what happened. So, in other words, I will take responsibility, he's saying, for handling the crisis really badly. But he hasn't taken responsibility for the crisis, because if he did, he would have to resign.
Good to talk to you, David. Thanks very much.
When you don't need an answer, you'll be days like this. When you don't need a chance, you'll be days like this. When you don't get the trade, by that old Judas kiss, and I must remember, there'll be days like this.